another world, right there, under the surface. I am Kaki Gondi, a Kenyan music producer. For a very long time, I've had this idea to gather sounds from all over my homeland. The sounds of instruments, of artists, of the people, and bring them together in a way that no one has ever done before. With a bit of inspiration from an old classic and with the help of an amazing local artist, we found a direction. But it needed something more. It needed soul. And there was only one way to capture that. So, I left my studio behind and went on an epic journey. I wanted to see if I could capture in a song what it is that makes us, us.
But when I sing or dance and I feel the rhythm, it's like I'm in a different world. I couldn't believe that art can take you somewhere. So with the music, you can fly.
Our grandfathers used music to send messages to people. Peace is one of the best things that we need. Culture and music can bring all tribes across the country together.
With the journey done, I headed for home and back to the studio to assemble the track. When I began this journey, I thought I'd find different sounds, different cultures. But what I ended up finding made me feel warm inside. I found love. I found laughter. I found togetherness.
You know, I must say that was a wonderful video by Kake Donde from Kenya, a music producer. You know, something that's very much, what should I say, foundational to people of African descent is music, that strong culture, that level of culture. And within this month of Black History Month, we like to, you know, promote that level of dance, that level of music. Music is one of the rhythms, you know, people of African descent are always seen to people with a lot of rhythm. And even when we look at the time of enslavement, you know, a lot of our, what should I say, revolutions that we had, and a lot of the times that we would have organized our people, we organized them through music. We even communicated through drums, through dancing. There were different, what should I say, signals that we'd make within certain dances to send certain messages. So music was not only instrumental or for enjoying ourselves, but very instrumental when it comes to most of our revolts across the Caribbean and even across the world. So, you know, that video is one of the videos that when I saw that video for the first time, I was like, this is something that I must share with people. You know, for this month, exactly, for Black History Month, we must, of course, promote more of our culture. So, you know, for this television program, it's going to be less talking and more content, you know, if it's Black History Month. So the much content that I can share with you guys, I will try to share tonight. So I'm going to get into another video. This video, of course, is going to touch on an issue that we all around the world would know, which is the Black Lives Matter movement and its impact in the world. And, of course, it give us some insights to the present-day struggle, which is, of course, racism. So let's get straight into that video and, you know, just enjoy the content.
Hey, what are you watching? Oh. Dear Nat and Moby, why are so many people protesting about racism? I thought we fixed all that stuff a long time ago. From Amir. I wish that were true, Amir. A lot of us are taught that racism basically ended with the civil rights era. That's when activists fought to extend equal rights to all people, regardless of race. We learn about brave leaders like Fannie Lou Hamer, Malcolm X, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., how they fought against segregation, the forced separation of Black people from whites, how millions of Americans took to the streets in support of change, and how new laws were put in place to protect African Americans and other minority groups. It seems like forever ago, and it's tough to even imagine some of the scenes. Ordinary Americans throwing trash at the first Black Major League Baseball player, harassing a little girl named Ruby Bridges for attending a white school, attacking people simply for eating lunch at a segregated counter. Today, most Americans agree that all of that behavior was just beyond terrible. We elected a Black president twice, and who doesn't love Beyonce? So, we've changed since then, right? We must have put racism behind us. Well, I know that. I'm just speaking rhetorically. In a lot of ways, we have changed since then. Interpersonal racism, expressing bigoted ideas, is widely seen as unacceptable. Nowadays, these people would probably lose their jobs over this kind of behavior. But the protests we're seeing today aren't really about that sort of thing. They're about structural racism in our society, a built-in system of bias that makes life easier for white people and more difficult for Black people and other people of color. It puts them at greater risk for poverty, unemployment, and disease. Structural racism is a factor in some disturbing trends. Black people are nearly 6 times more likely than whites to be imprisoned, and Black men are killed by police at more than twice the rate of white men, like on May 25th, 2020. That's when a Black man named George Floyd died in Minneapolis, Minnesota. He was killed by a white police officer. During an arrest, Officer Derek Chauvin pulled Mr. Floyd to the ground. Chauvin knelt on his neck and stayed there for close to 9 minutes. Mr. Floyd said several times that he couldn't breathe, and after a few minutes, he lost consciousness. An ambulance was called, and George Floyd was pronounced dead at the hospital. After video of the arrest surfaced the next day, all 4 officers were fired. Officer Chauvin has been charged with murder, and the other 3 officers have been charged as accomplices. And protests have spread from Minneapolis to cities all around the world. Thousands of marches took place in the month following Floyd's death. These demonstrations have been overwhelmingly peaceful. Though, if you've been watching the news, you might think it's all been riots. News and social media tend to highlight what's most sensational, unusual, exciting, or scary stuff that gets people to watch. Well, the demonstrations aren't only about Mr. Floyd. They're about a pattern of violence against Black people and a tendency for our suffering to go unnoticed. That's why Black Lives Matter is a rallying cry at these demonstrations. The phrase dates back to 2013 in response to a murder trial in Florida. 17-year-old Trayvon Martin was shot on his way home from a store. His killer wasn't a police officer, just someone who claimed Martin looked suspicious. After the jury found the killer not guilty, 3 community organizers started the Black Lives Matter hashtag, because the verdict seemed to be saying that Trayvon Martin's life didn't matter. A year later, a police officer killed 18-year-old Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri. Brown was unarmed when he was shot multiple times. The officer wasn't charged. Protests swept Ferguson and spread throughout the country. That's when Black Lives Matter grew into a movement, raising awareness about senseless deaths that might otherwise have gone unnoticed, like those of Tamir Rice, Eric Garner, Freddie Gray, Monica Diamond, Breonna Taylor, and so many others. The protests are calling for justice and accountability. So, Black Lives Matter doesn't mean that other lives don't matter. And it doesn't mean that Black lives are more special than others. It means we want our lives to be valued as much as anyone else's. Well, this isn't about blaming the police. When an officer abuses their power, that's just a symptom. The problem is much more widespread than that, which is why we need everybody's help to change things. And that's what these protests are about, raising awareness and calling for action. And guess what? It's already starting to work. In Minneapolis, the city council voted to remake the police department from the ground up. Other cities are thinking about similar measures. It seems like overnight, the whole country has woken up and realized what a big problem racism is. We're living through a huge historical moment right now, so remember it. 'Cause trust me, one day, your kids will be asking you about this. Throughout our history, movements like this one have led to leaps in progress, like abolishing slavery, getting votes for women, improving conditions for workers, and ending segregation. That's why protest is such an important American tradition. Uniting our voices in peaceful dissent, demanding that our leaders listen, and even making them a little uneasy. Because when people are comfortable, they don't see a need to change. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. called that feeling of unease creative tension. In other words, protest should be peaceful as in nonviolent, not necessarily peaceful as in calm or soothing. Bringing about change in our society is an ongoing struggle. Each new generation has to take up their cause. Yep, that includes kids. Because we have a voice, and we can do amazing things with it. Mari Copeny began fighting for clean water in Flint, Michigan when she was just 8 years old. Emma Gonzalez, a survivor of the Parkland school shooting in Florida, has fought for tougher gun laws. Malala Yousafzai stood up for girls' education even after she was brutally attacked. Greta Thunberg has helped focus the world's attention on climate change. And let's not forget Darnella Frazier, the 17-year-old girl who recorded George Floyd's arrest. When we raise our voices to say something's wrong, adults listen. 'Cause, let's face it, kids tell it like it is. And believe it or not, adults are inspired by that. You can start by asking questions about things in your world. Is there something in your own community or school that bothers you? Listen to your inner sense of right and wrong. Because every change for the better starts with someone's conscience. So trust your own and give it a voice.
I really hope you guys enjoyed that video. You know, that video, of course, touched on a lot of good things, a lot of good information. It gives you some facts of what happened in the U.S. And it's something that has plagued the world. You know, there's so many things that are caught on camera and certain things that were not being caught in camera. But of course, the loss of George Floyd would have, what should I say, arisen a wave of unrest. People were very much disappointed in the fact that, you know, people of African descent will continue to be treated like half man, half beast. That's how we were treated when we were enslaved, you know, 400 years ago. For example, in Ghana, we were enslaved for 215 years ago. And that is things that, you know, a lot of young people and even older folks are unaware of. That's why in this month, Black History Month, we, Ikemba, will try our best to continue to promote information, promote our history, promote our culture, and promote, of course, the facts. So, of course, continue with the program, you know, for persons who are now tuning in, this is Ikemba's Youth for Reparations television program held here every second Thursday on Channel 11 NCN. Of course, Ikemba is an organization that champions the cause for reparatory justice, reparations. That compensation for, they stole us, they sold us, they owe us. And of course, repatriation, we want to go back to Africa. Of course, giving us more, opportunities to education. And of course, more opportunities when it comes to business, owning our own land, etc. I'll continue with the program, of course. One of the things that I want to take out of that video is systemic racism. The way in how racism has not been eradicated from the world, but has evolved. As it evolved in a way whereby, it's covering behind a blind or behind some, nice coat of paint, but it still exists. Even in Guyana, we see that level of tension, that level of racism, mostly around election time, which is sad, but it is there. And it's something that we must continue to engage in conversation and engage to eradicate. Being an African organization, we, even though we champion the cause of people of African descent, we would like that everyone can respect each other. And of course, it first has to start with you, start in your home. So look at, make sure that your brothers and your sisters are not racist. Make sure that they move away from any behavior that would cause racism. So now we also want to get into another video, something to lighten up the air. It's continuing the kind of cartoon kind of effect. It's a kind of musical. And we get straight into that video, and then we'll have this conversation to be continued.
Don't die on me. I said, young black king, don't die on me. You my brother, you my keeper, I need you to keep an eye on me. And no more fighting on the streets, walking around with all this pride on me. Tough for us already, know that you can still rely on me. Please, just stay alive for me. And my young black queens, don't quit now. Yeah, you're the only ones that got us, I could never let my sis down. You've been too strong for too long, yet still you never sit down. Wow, that's the power of your love, and then it's worthy of a king's crown. And still you never let your kings down. Even though more time we don't deserve it. The picture isn't pretty but it's perfect. Tedious question so then I curve it. Serena or Venus the way I serve it. I'm Mallory Blackman the way I sell books. I jump on the stage and then the world looks. All that banging on my door had my girl shook. That sorry officer, I only sell hooks. Leave me alone. Every little L I took, I held it close to home. Live and you learn, they'll always hate me for my tone. For the shade of my skin and not the courage in my bones. Now I'm misunderstood and I'm feeling like Nina Simone. The way I told the world would have thought that I was Sims. See her on stage, I know that women can be kings. I know that they're overlooking what you bring. I know it's all good, but it's just the little things. Black queen, you're immaculate. It's coming like the world ain't ready for your magic yet. And that was never your fault, man, I guess they couldn't hack it yet. World domination, and you ain't even taking off your jacket yet. So effortlessly fabulous. And my young black kings, I hope it pays off. Go and show them what you're made of. Trying to scare us with some things that we are no longer afraid of. Man, are superheroes, let me see you take off. I pray you never take your cape off. Even though more time we don't fly straight. But trust me bro, I promise we gon' die great. Our burdens are heavy but we ain't lightweights. Our parents were legends, they had to migrate. So that's the reason not to sit around and chat. I'm from the place where Michael Dapper made a smash hit. Where you can be a rapper if you rap it. They're screaming what a flipping time to be a black Brit. We so alive, whole world on our demise. But no we ride, try to push us all to the side, we know our rights. Now we get the whole of the pie then go inside. When you see that Mercury flag in the sky, just know it's sad. The way I took the charts, would have thought that I was Dave. I am young, black, beautiful and brave. Know that they're overlooking what we gave. I don't do good, so we pray for better days. Pray they're better than before. Young black king, you are everything and more. I know one song's not enough to settle scores. But from the bottom of my heart, man, I hope you're getting yours. Man, I hope you're getting yours. Young black queen, get your shine on. All I see is innovators and a bag of icons. You can go and ask the whole world where they got their style from. That's you, that's us, God's time, and he never gets the time wrong. I guess we're just some ticking time bombs, we soon blow. Boom. I can make my world come true. All my dreams will see me through. And if that will get me down, my dreams will turn things all around. With a smile upon my face. I can see a better place. Doesn't matter what may come my way. Believe me now, I'll win someday.
I don't know if it was me alone, but that was a wonderful song. You know, the jam and everything. Of course, the whole video, it was perfect. And it spoke to black kings, black queens. You know, we have to understand, we have to know who we are as people. You know, one of the things that I've always been champion since I started youth work, and it's about 10 years now that I'm doing youth work. I've always championed self-realization, something that I believe strongly. And I believe that if you can find yourself, if you can know who you are as a person, as an individual, and then of course as a community, you will then be on your way towards success. You know, a lot of us around the world, people of African descent, you know, we are lost. We don't know where we came from. We don't know what our cultures or norms or morals. We don't know, you know, what was life like before slavery? You know, most of the time we look at history, the first thing comes to mind is slavery. And, you know, I'm glad that you mentioned black queens and talking about slavery and talking about how we came out of that struggle into into being emancipated, you know, passing that Emancipation Proclamation. I want to now zoom into females, to women. You know, most of the times when we hear revolutions, we hear how people of African descent have strived. We hear all the great men's name, you know, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, you know, we hear these strong men. But there were strong women who would have fought, who would have organized, who would have played major roles when it comes to the freedom of people of African descent and, of course, our continuous progress. So I'm getting straight into that video. As I said before, we're not going to do too much talking, but get straight into content and bringing a lot of facts towards you. That's going to highlight 5 Caribbean women who would have, you know, helped towards the freedom, or I should say the advancement of people of African descent.
When we think of the people who shape this region, we often think of the heads of states, presidents, prime ministers, those kinds of people. But a lot of changes came from people not at the forefront of society. They came from the people on the ground, organizing and unionizing the working class. Over the centuries, history has systematically suppressed marginalized people's voices and buried their accomplishments in obscurity. Within those groups, the stories of women are even harder to track down. There seems to be a gap in the history of radical women in the Caribbean. While it was very easy for me to find multiple articles and papers written on some of my favorite Caribbean revolutionary men, it was hard to find information on more than a select few great Caribbean women of the past. And that's when I realized how important today's video would be. This week, we're going to look at 5 Caribbean women who fought for social, economic, and political change, and shaped the Caribbean that we live in today. First up, Queen Nanny. According to legend, Queen Nanny was born in what is today Ghana, of the Ashanti people. There are 2 versions of her story, one where she came to Jamaica as a free woman of royal blood, and in the other she came as a slave but then escaped by jumping off the ship while it was still docked offshore. Whichever is true, it is maintained that she was always free in Jamaica. She fled to the mountains and settled with other Maroons on a ridge high above the planter settlements. By 1720, she headed a large community made up of free and runaway slaves. This settlement was eventually named Nanny Town. Queen Nanny organized and led her people in extended fight against English subjugation and enslavement, often raiding plantations for weapons, burning the plantations, and leading free slaves to join them in the mountains. During a period of 30 years, she was credited with freeing more than 1,000 slaves. Her Maroons were innovators in guerrilla warfare. They used surprise, the knowledge of their terrain, and cleverly chosen positions to their advantage in fights against the British. Nanny's troops were so proficient at disguising their location that the British soldiers circulated tales of trees in the forest becoming alive and cutting one's head off. To heighten the enemy's fear, Nanny's forces never killed all of the attacking force. She would always allow a remnant to live to return to base and relay the story and horror of the encounter. Nanny's life and accomplishments have been recognized by the government of Jamaica, and she has been honored as a national hero and awarded the title of Right Excellent. Currently, there are only 7 such national heroes, and Nanny is the only woman. Next, we have La Mulatresse Solitude, or the Mulatto Solitude. Though very little is known of her, the Mulatto Solitude remains an important anti-slavery figure in Guadeloupe. She was born on the island of Guadeloupe around 1772. Her mother was an enslaved woman from Africa, and her father was a sailor who raped her mother at sea when she was transported from Africa to the West Indies. Because she was noted to have pale skin and pale eyes, she was given domestic work rather than being forced to work in the fields. She saw the abolition of slavery in 1794 and joined a Maroon community in Guadeloupe. In 1802, when Napoleon Bonaparte enacted a law reinstating slavery in the French colonies, the Mulatto Solitude, a few months pregnant, joined the fight for freedom. After 18 days of unequal combat between more than 4,000 soldiers on the French side and 1,000 regular soldiers on the side of the rebels were defeated. She survived the battle but was imprisoned by the French. Because she was pregnant at the time of her imprisonment, she was not to be hanged until November 29th of the same year, one day after giving birth. The mulatto solitude symbolizes the Caribbean woman and mothers who fought to protect the ideals of equality and freedom in the context of slavery. Third, we have Claudia Jones. Claudia Jones was a Caribbean revolutionary intellectual and community organizer who combined Marxist-Leninism, decolonization, anti-imperialism, and anti-sexist politics to make sense of the social and political situation of her day. Jones was born in 1915 in Port of Spain, Trinidad. Jones moved to the US as a child, from where she was later exiled for her communist beliefs after serving 9 months in prison. Jones moved to the UK in 1955 and was a part of a larger movement of black writers and artists who aimed to empower black diaspora through cultural education and representation. Following the Notting Hill riots, where gangs of white residents attacked the homes of their West Indian neighbors, Claudia sought to wash the taste of Notting Hill out of our mouths. Carnival and its bright celebration of black freedom in the Caribbean was a perfect way to heal, and Claudia organized the first Caribbean Carnival in Notting Hill, paving the way for what is the largest street festival in Europe today. Jones's Carnival was mainly celebrated by West Indians and became a yearly festivity until her death in 1964. Although considered a female political and intellectual equivalent of CLR James, the exclusion of her insights and analysis from historical discussion has set back the urgent theorizing of questions concerning women in general and black women in first and third world countries. Elma Francois was a domestic worker and labor organizer, and has been described as one of the most vociferous Afrocentric activists in the history of Trinidad and Tobago and in the Caribbean region. Francois was born in St. Vincent and migrated to Trinidad and Tobago as a worker in 1919, where she joined the Trinidad Workingmen's Association. Her militancy, grounded in Garveyite consciousness and working class politics, immediately put her at odds with the Cipriani leadership of the TWA. Later, Elma Francois founded the Negro Welfare Cultural and Social Association, a Marxist-oriented labor organization that sought the empowerment of primarily Negro people, but recruited non-Afro members as well. What made this organization different from many of the other organizations in the Caribbean at the time was Elma Francois' insistence that there should be no sex separation in the executive structure of the NWCSA, unlike the other organizations of the time, which had a women's arm/auxiliary, instead of gender equality in the leadership. Elma Francois was the first woman in the history of Trinidad and Tobago tried for sedition in 1938. She did not hire a lawyer but defended herself. According to Rhoda Reddock, when asked by the prosecutor why she was stirring disaffection amongst the subjects of Her Majesty, she replied, "I don't know that my speeches create disaffection. I know that my speeches create a fire in the minds of people so as to change the conditions which now exist." In 1987, 23 years after her death, she was posthumously declared a national heroine of Trinidad and Tobago. Last, we have Celia Sanchez. Most people know Fidel Castro and Che Guevara, but fewer people have heard of Celia Sanchez, the woman at the heart of the Cuban Revolution, and has been rumored to be the main decision maker. After the March 10, 1952 coup, Celia joined the struggle against the Batista government. She was a founder of the 26th of July movement, leader of combat squads throughout the revolution, controlled group resources, and even made the arrangements for the Granma landing, which transported 82 fighters from Mexico to Cuba in order to overthrow Batista. After the victory of the revolution, she launched numerous projects that enriched the lives of many Cubans, from parks to literacy programs to helping develop the Cohiba cigar brand. Since her death, Celia Sanchez has been virtually canonized by Cuba as the woman who most embodies its revolutionary ideals, with countless hospitals and schools named after her. In a speech at the dedication of a hospital to Celia Sanchez, Castro stated, "I truly believe that this is the best form of tribute to pay to someone who dedicated herself to duty, without resting for a moment, without forgetting one single detail, and I believe sincerely that this is the most heartfelt, profound, and revolutionary homage one can give to a compatriot who gave her life for the revolution." There are many other women who left a lasting impact on the Caribbean. These are just a few to get the conversation started. If you like this more listicle style video, let me know in the comments. They're not as deep, but they are pretty fun to make. Let me know your favorite Caribbean revolutionary down in the comments. If you like this video, be sure to like and
Now, as I said before, women played an instrumental role in the Caribbean. They have, and they continue to do the same. For people of African descent, we always cherished our women. It's something, a woman, if when you just think about the whole fact of a woman, I came from a woman. I respect my mother, respect my sister, and respect each and every woman that walks on this earth. And I think that it's important with this Black History Month that we put more emphasis and more focus on our African women, because for too long we have seen the misuse, or what should I say, the women being mistreated, women being beaten, women being put down in social status, etc. It is time that our women are being recognized for who they are, strong, powerful African queens in today's society. So continuing with the whole fact of women, I just want to get straight into a music video that speaks a little bit more about, Black women.
There's pen black girls in my area cold. Dark skin, light skin, medium tones. Perm ting braids got mini afros. Thick lips got hips, some of us don't. Big nose contour, some of us won't. Never wanna put us in the media, bro. Want a fat beauty like Kardashians, no. Want a fat beauty like my auntie got, yo. Wheel up the block clock, tell her reload it. I've got the camera, my girls are posing. I need some backup, then my ones are rolling. Grown woman things, so I'm never at risk. Mind my own business, I'm never in mess. Who am I ain't big, get a slice of the cake. Want a house with a view and a new pair of shoes. Keep it real from the jump, Gucci gang. Little vibe, little bass, little kick, little snare, little lies, big truths. Do you, they don't care. Do you, they don't care. Get your ass out the box and build up from there. I don't have a gang with me, but I still walk with a gangster lean. I brought Nikes cause we think they're clean. MJ leather jacket, beat it Billie Jean. MJ leather jacket cause I think I'm bad. That's cool. I like it. The growth, the light, the pain, the fight. We love, we fight, we hurt, we cry. He paid the price. You'll be
I
alright.
think I need some time away. I took a little time. I pray we gon' be alright. Okay, alright, okay, alright, okay. I think I need some time away. I took a little time. I pray we gon' be alright. Okay, alright, okay, alright, okay. And he said there's pink black girls, not area code. These black girls need to be in the shows. Be on the runways, not just mood boards. On top of that, I wanna see when your team. Look at your crown, natural relax to the Jericho. One time soft and sheen. Where black girl magic is sometimes blue. Man broke a hairband or two. Raise my voice, she gonna say that I'm angry. Kiss my teeth, and now you say that I'm hood. Kid at 16, you say it's my destiny. Driving a range, you think I'm up to no good. Give us a break and let us breathe, man. Give me a chance, let's achieve, fam. And I know that my hair looks a bit different today, so don't touch my hair.
Like new hair, who this? Old black woman jacket and a band two twist. Look, mind over matter, I can handle this. We're fine, take a second, the rewards in risk. See, I think that I care too much. Bottleless and cover, see air. 2 cups, I've got nothing to show, but you love, check my flaws and all my trials. I was black back when it wasn't even in style.
That's cool.
I like it, the growth, the light, the pain, the fight. We love, we fight, we hurt, we cry. He paid the price, you'll be
I think I need some time away. I took a little time. I pray we gon' be alright. Okay, alright, okay, alright, okay. I think I need some time away. I took a little time. I pray we gon' be alright. Okay, alright, okay, alright, okay, alright, okay.
The Black woman. Every time I get a chance to look at my spouse in the eyes and say, you're beautiful, you're powerful, you're mighty, I do it. I think we all should continue to do this. Your spouse, your wife, your sisters, your mother, and even to your friends. Give them that touch on the shoulder. They are strong. They are there besides us as men, as women to us men. And I think it's important for us to continue to cherish. And women, we like you. We love you. We want you to continue to cherish yourselves, protect yourselves. Don't. We've seen so much, and I know we're not going to get deep into that. But I just want to focus on the part that shows that women are powerful, they are mighty, they are beautiful, their presence is a blessing to people on this earth. And get straight into another video because I don't want to put too much of talk time. I'm going to get into a video that's going to go back into the whole Black Lives Matter situation. So let's get straight into that video and we have a little small discussion after that.
A common question we've been seeing on social media all across the Caribbean is, why should we care about the Black Lives Matter movement in America? And how can we even help? To answer that question, I feel like we need to first identify the problem. As we've all seen in the news, riots and protests are happening all over America following a recent string of police killings of black people, starting with Ahmaud Arbery while jogging, Breonna Taylor in her home, and George Floyd, who died when a police officer knelt on his neck for almost 9 minutes. Well, after that, the streets were filled, fires burned, and it seemed like America was about to experience a new era of civil unrest. But these problems didn't start in Minneapolis, and they definitely didn't start this month or even this year. For example, the Black Lives Matter hashtag started off in 2013 after the death of Trayvon Martin, and then grew to a national thing in 2014 after the death of Michael Brown in Ferguson and Eric Garner in New York, both leading to widespread protests. And there were protests before that. You think back to LA with the Rodney King riots, and then before that the civil rights movement, and countless others before that, all fighting the same problem, the systematic racism against black people. Now, we Caribbean people have been blessed in a way. For many reasons, we don't feel the same level of oppression here in the Caribbean as in America. I'll probably touch on that in another video, but it seems like our privilege has gotten us to a point where we can no longer empathize with America's problems. I've heard people say, that's not my problem, I live in America, then people don't care about me anyway, so that's not my business. But it is your business, and here's why. Injustice cannot exist in a vacuum. More specifically, the problem of systematic racism is a Caribbean problem. When Europe took 15 million people from Africa and scattered them throughout the Americas, most of them ended up here, in the Caribbean. The system which categorized African slaves as non-human was developed specifically for the Caribbean and implemented here. Now, in the late 1700s and the early 1800s, while the Caribbean erupted in revolutions, America had its own revolution too. America wanted to free itself from British rule and forge its own path. So they went to war. And they won. They granted themselves a unique opportunity to start a new society founded on the principle of freedom for all. But they chose instead to start this new nation on freedom for all white people and slavery for all black people. But freedom and slavery cannot live together. So 100 years later, there was another war, the Civil War. And after that war, they just replaced slavery with Jim Crow, a set of laws that enforced racial segregation and removed political and economic gains made by blacks during the Reconstruction period. Those laws were founded on that same principle from all those years and all those miles away, that black people were not human and their role was to provide labor in the economy. And what we're seeing today is just a legacy of that principle. So what you have today are two societies intrinsically linked because of their shared history. And in the Caribbean, we've always known, whether it be conscious or subconscious, that what happens in Black America is our problem too. For example, Marcus Garvey, he was born and raised in Jamaica, but he felt duty-bound in his mission for the betterment of all black people to go into the belly of the beast and face it head-on in America. Martin Luther King came to the Caribbean in search of a break from his own fight against racism in America and found the inspiration to keep going in Jamaica's out of many one people lifestyle. So it's not a separate thing. The Caribbean has always been a key player in post-colonial progress. We're further along on the emancipation journey, so we need to look out for those behind us and support and be examples for those behind. Apart from all the high philosophy and social reasons, there are also very basic everyday reasons. We in the Caribbean don't only stay in the Caribbean. We vacation in America. Some of us live here and work in the States, and our children go to school in America. When you're in the States, the police don't differentiate. They don't say, oh, this one is from the Caribbean, so we have to treat them better. You're just another black person to them. So there are aspects of standing against this that are in our own personal interest. So that's the why. As for what you can do, the most important thing is to educate yourself. You can't have these discussions and you can't fight the fight if you don't know what you're fighting for or why you're fighting. So it's very important to educate yourself first and foremost. Secondly, you need to have discussions and conversations with your friends because you're most influential to the people immediately around you. If you have white friends, don't stray away from talking about this because you think it will make them uncomfortable, because it should be normal to talk about these things, and the only way to make it normal is to talk about these things. Next, you can donate to the many funds supporting the movement and bailing out protesters. You can sign the petitions that are seeking justice and reform. I've put some of those in the description down below. Next, you can support black business owners and black creators. And lastly, we live in an age where everybody has sort of a platform with social media. So you can use your platform to further share the message, which is kind of what I'm doing right now. Recently, I've been doing a lot of research on history and how it ties into things that are happening now. And I felt like it didn't make any sense doing all of that and then not doing anything with that information. So I decided to make a video like this. And as I research more and learn more, I intend to make more videos like this. So if you like videos like this, or if you scroll through my channel and you like the other kind of videos I make, be sure to subscribe, like the video, share it with anyone you feel like it could be useful to.
Now that video, of course, dived into a lot. You know, it's a short video, but it sent a strong, powerful message. You know, it spoke to how we've been affected in the Caribbean. Systemic racism continues to, you know, breed, continues to live very strong, even though it's been hiding behind, you know, as you said, wolf in sheep clothing. So we must also continue the conversations. Never run away from these conversations. These conversations are very important to have, very important to be had, because at the end of the day, we're living within this reality. What happened 400 years ago, or for example in Guyana 215 years ago, has not just faded away. And that's one of the things we always try to continue to bring people back to that particular point, that the enslavement period continues to affect us today. You know, when you hit your foot at a very young age, you don't feel it in your youth. But when you get older, you start to feel that pain. You know, you just remember that, you know what, this ache came from when I knocked my foot or I knocked my head sometime down the line. That was a couple of years ago. I didn't know it affected me today. Today, what are we affected by because of enslavement? A lot of us don't have an identity. We're still trying to find or trying to photocopy somebody else's identity to make it us, to make us ours. A lot of us don't have any, what should I say, knowledge of their roots, where they come from. We're more, because of course globalization, we follow what is trending, you know, but we don't have that personal identity of our own. We don't have that self-realization, that self foundation. Most of what we have is what we would have photocopied or what we would have seen to be working for others. So we try to adapt it. And that is sad. People of African descent are people of such culture, such strength, of such vibrance, coming from such a rich culture before slavery. Today, just piggybacking on, you know, others, piggybacking. And I'm not saying anything is wrong with anybody else's style, anybody else's morals or their way of life. But we came from a strong culture, a strong way of life. And it's sad that because of enslavement, that way of life, that culture, that knowledge of self, that knowledge of identity, that knowledge of family, that knowledge of medicine, that knowledge of education has been stripped, has been completely broken. So today, we see most of African people, and it's good to know that in this present day, because of it being the information age, the 21st century, we're more knowledgeable. Just a click of a finger, you can get information. Like, for example, that same video. You know, we have more young people who have that platform to show their research, to showcase, you know, what they are doing. And I commend that young man who would have done that video, and I commend other young people who are adding to this fight, adding to this struggle. For Ikemba, we continue to push education. Education is key. And one of the things that he made mention to, which we want to reiterate, is that if you are not knowledgeable about something and knowledgeable how it affects you today, you would not want to fight for it. You wouldn't be a part of such a movement if you do not understand how it affects you today. The reason that we have such large numbers of incarceration, the reason we have that large number of teenage pregnancies, the reason why hypertension, diabetes affect people of African descent more than other races, the reason why we don't have the opportunities like other ethnic groups to have the opportunities to education, to land, to finances, to business, etc., is not because we are a cursed race. It's because of our history. History continues to play in the present day. The disparity that we face today was not caused overnight. It was caused over 400 years or 215 years or 300 years. It depends on which geographical location that you are in right now. Haiti, Guyana, Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, Bahamas. No place in the Caribbean, no place in the world is free from that period of enslavement. We all have been affected, and more than just people of African descent. Every ethnic group in the world has been affected by that history. Because the way people see us, the way people treat us, they don't born with that mentality to say, you know what, we should treat black people or treat African people the way that they do. They learned that. It's been taught. It's continued to be taught, and that is the sad situation of our present day. And we have to continue to rethink, or what should I say, reteach our people, or to counter these stereotypes and these negative, negative stereotypes, of course, that are being placed upon people of African descent. We are smart, we are powerful, we are strong, we are mighty, we are blessed, we are highly favored. You know, we can do business. We can be tycoons. We could be presidents that actually fight for people of African descent. We can champion big causes. We can make change. You know, there's a proverb that I always like. You said, if you think you're too insignificant, try spending the night with a mosquito. That proverb itself says a lot. If you think that you're too insignificant, try spending a night with a mosquito. And from that, I just want to get into another video, which is, of course, it's something for the ladies yet again, but it speaks to, of course, our Black rich culture.
Whoa.
Let's do this.
Birthday.
Okay, so just so no one has to feel the pressure of going first, me and my girls got you.
Oh, yeah.
Growing up as a kid, I hated my dark skin. And if I could be transparent, even now as a grown woman, I have to constantly reprogram my thinking. Years of being told I was not the standard for beauty, but see, that was a lie. Which is why I chose to rewrite my own narrative. Dear Black girl, we are warriors whose spirits can't be crushed. We speak up when told we're too much. We forgive when our Black men dismiss, degrade, and can't see that we are not the ugly ducklings, but the swan princess, the Nubian goddess, the reflection of our ancestors, the made in his image. When society tries to pin light versus dark skin, we remind them that every shade of chocolate is divinely crafted. Black girl magic is more than a hashtag. Yes. It is a movement, a statement like Maxine Waters claiming our power, moving through this world unapologetically, degree holding with our heads held high, melanin moisturized, big hips, thick thighs, hair free and natural, wrapped in a protective style. Dear Black girl, you better recognize we are the trailblazers. Everybody wants to be us.
Come on, please, come on.
So to all my sisters, as we continue this process of loving our skin, start with this. Look at yourself in the mirror. This is me, the chocolate beauty, deserving and saying, I am queen. Dear Black girl, know that you are everything.
You're here, that's what matters.
Dear Black girl, you're everything. Dear Black people, we are everything. You know, a message that I want to really drive on this program is that we as African people have to have a sense of direction of our own. Guyana is a plural society. We have about 6 races. And it's important that each race have a strong sense of direction, personal direction, which would add to the collective direction of this country. It is important we as African people have that sense of direction for ourselves. It's important we of African people know what are our contributions towards this society and this society in large. It's important that we understand where we came from. Not to go back to that time. You know, we have this conversation a lot of times when people think, you know what, do you want me to go back to the time when we were in, I wouldn't even mention it. But we want you to understand where you came from because it would help you to where you're going. There's a quote by Marcus Garvey that says, the people without knowledge of their roots, origin, is like a tree without root. It's important for us to understand who we are as a people. It's important to understand that we have to support each other. A lot of times we have so many, the fight sometimes could be among ourselves more than with other people. And that is one of the biggest problems that people of African descent have. And that is not something that also happened by chance. It was something that was created. We were divided by the people who continue and that time suppressed us and continue to suppress us. They want to keep us divided. And the more that we continue to fight among ourselves, is the more they can continue to deny us what is owed to us, which is reparations. Reparations will be, what should I say? Reparations is the big thing. Reparations is the honey. Reparations is the milk. Reparations is the bread. Reparations, which speaks to not only monetary compensation, which even though that is very important, it speaks to education opportunities. It speaks to land rights. It speaks to repatriation, going back to Africa. It speaks to understanding our culture. It speaks to rehabilitation, psychological rehabilitation. It speaks to so much. And it's important we examine what was taken from us. It's important that we ask and question our history that was given to us, because most of what was given to us is not ours. It was given to us to keep us where we are today. Mental slavery, as Bob Marley would have said it, taking the words of Marcus Garvey. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. None but ourselves. That thing called Black Lives Matter should be understood more by people of African descent more than anybody else. Because if we do not understand how much we matter, if we do not treat each other as we matter, if we do not respect our brothers and sisters, our wives, our children, our community, if we do not respect our morals, our values, if we do not respect our people, our skin, our hair, our thick nose and thick ties, if we do not respect who we are as individuals, as a community, as a nation, as a people, why would we want anyone else to respect us? It first starts with you. It starts in your home. It starts in your community. It starts with you as an individual. It takes one to make a change. And I'm going to go back to that proverb. If you think you're too small to make a difference, spend a night with a mosquito. Just one night. And you'll see how your thoughts about you being too insignificant would change. People of African descent have to wake up. There's some that are still sleeping. There's some that are being awake. And some that are very much woke, but they don't have much support. And unity, self-realization, organizational strategy, financial, of course, there's a need for much finances. There's a need for that financial aspect. You know, we need to have our own businesses. We're not saying that we wouldn't support others, but we have to have our own businesses. We have to have our own things, our own direction, our own base, and we have to strengthen that base. I'm here to plead with you guys, people of African descent, and even plead with people who are not of our ethnic background. We are part of Guyana. We are part of the world. And it's important that we change this world. It starts with us. Systemic racism or just plain racism, all of these things we have to put an end to. So for all the persons who have been tuning in, I'd just like to thank you for being a part of this night of this program. It's Ikimba's Youth for Reparations television program, aired here every second Wednesday, second Thursday actually, on NCN Channel 11. Until next time, enjoy the rest of Black History Month. Black and proud.